What's really important about risk in firms right now is that the consideration of risk, the mindfulness of risk, the response to perceived risks should not be restricted to some guy called a risk officer. It should be something that pervades the entire organization, because it really is the job of everybody in the organization to be alert to the kinds of risks that each individual person in his responsibilities for the firm faces or creates, and thinking about how to deal with them, not that they all get pushed over to some guy called a risk officer and that person has to deal with it. So risk culture is something that the firm has to make pervasive within it.
It's how everybody within the organization approaches thinking about risk. And I preach, lots of people preach this these days, that everybody has to be a risk manager in an organization. And in some sense, if I'm at the top of that organization of risk, doing the risk job, then I'm as much a cheerleader and encouraging people to make sure that everybody takes it on as their own.
I think the culture of risk, whether it be credit risk, market risk, etc., is mainly where models are developed and senior management listens to the models. They may not agree all the time, but at least they give it a fair hearing, and that it is one of the drivers to their decisions, as opposed simply to increase market share of their product, whatever that might be.
Risk culture should be an integral part in your business, and that would allow you to see the general or the average, but also the extremes in your risk. And that's why it should be an integral part.
Well, for me, I'm coming at it very much from the sort of real-time world where the risks are ever present. What it's really all about, I always like to quote the head of social media for Bristol Council, funnily enough, who I met at an event quite recently, who said there's only one social media policy you need to manage risk, which is don't be stupid. And I think that's a really good way to put it. My view is getting into the world of continuous engagement, making sure that you're decentralizing that communications message. You know, if you want your staff to become more productive, more effective, and build client bases, especially if you look at the world of wealth management, you know, that's somewhere where you know there are personal and quite emotional relationships that characterize the world of a wealth manager between a high net individual and the banker himself. And I think in those spaces it becomes very important to be able to speak within the context of what's appropriate for your role, but also to introduce some of the personal aspects in there which will facilitate the relationship. So that's the kind of risk environment that I'm really interested in.